All right, for this video, I wanted to talk about the IRS CP14 notice. So what do you do when you get this notice? What are your options? Well, firstly, just some background on this notice. It's kind of obvious, right? So if you get this notice, it is a notice of a balance due for taxes, right? So this includes the principal amount of taxes that you might owe, plus interest, penalties, perhaps some late filing penalties as well. So what we've got here in front of us is a sample. So this is available on the IRS's website. It's a sample CP14 notice dating back to 2017. So obviously none of this information is real, right? This is just for illustrative purposes, so there's no taxpayer data here. But okay, so the notice again, it's a balance due notice. You can see here in this example, it's a 2017 balance, and there's a lot of items here, right? So it shows the taxes that were owed, the payments that you did make, if any, against that balance, and then various types of penalties and interest that might apply. So this taxpayer, you can see we have failure to file penalties, we have interest charges, we have failure to pay estimated tax penalties. So a lot of items here. Okay, so going back to what are the options? So you've got a lot of options when you owe taxes to the IRS, believe it or not. So the first option obviously is just pay it. Right, so if you owe the IRS money and you agree with the principal amount of tax owed, so if you look on line 1 here, principal amount of tax that you owed them, so this is generally the number that you would see on your Form 1040 tax return. If you agree with the amount and you're okay with the late filing penalties, the interest charges, then you can certainly always pay the balance, right? If you pay the amount due, that generally gets the IRS to leave you alone, right? So the first option is always just to pay whatever the balance is due on the notice and then move on with your life. Now, what are the other options if you can't pay this or if you disagree with the amount that's on the notice? Well, the first thing you could do is if you agree with everything, you can get an extension of time to pay. Okay, so this was previously filed via paper on Form 1127, but now you can file for an extension of time to pay online, and it grants you an additional 180 days to submit a payment for the balance due. All right, so that's the first thing you can do, and of course I'll put links below in the description for all those items. Now, if you aren't going to set up, or if you aren't going to request an extension, but you want to pay the balance due, you can set up an installment plan, right? So the IRS allows for various types of installment agreements. The first one is a guaranteed installment agreement. So if a taxpayer qualifies, you basically get 36 months to pay the balance due, pro rata over the course of that 36-month period. There's another option. It's called a streamlined installment agreement. So this one gives you a little bit more time, and it's done if you owe a little bit more money. You can get 72 months to basically pay the balances over the course of that period. And then the other options are offer and compromise agreements, so OICs. Basically, you go back to the IRS and you kind of negotiate for a lower amount due. So if you owe 100 grand, based on certain computations, your income, your net worth, things like that, you might be able to get a reduced amount owed, and so that's done through an OIC or an offer and compromise program. And then the other option is simply trying to get into non-collectible status, right? So the IRS, believe it or not, does have a system where if they determine that your account is going to be uncollectible, then they basically just stop chasing you for the money. Now, it's not great because there are federal tax liens that are going to be out there that are public information. So they will try to collect their money eventually. It's just they're not constantly hounding you for it. So a lot of options. I'll put some links to some additional guidance below in the description so you can review those. But again, so the first lesson of this is never ignore this notice, right? So you never, ever ignore an IRS notice because they won't leave you alone, generally. So figure out, do I want to pay this balance? If I owe the money, do I want to set up an installment plan? The other thing, and I should have touched on this at the beginning, is if you look at the taxes owed and you disagree with that amount, maybe it's because that you need to file an amended return or there was some kind of mistake, and that's another option too. A lot of times we have clients that get these balance due notices for failure to file a return, or there was a correction made on the IRS's side and now it results in you owing more money. If that's the case, then we need to respond to the notice without any kind of payment yet. We want to let them know that there's an issue here that needs to be changed, or maybe we need to file an amended return, so that'd be a 1040X filing to try to correct the total amount of tax that's actually owed. And then once that's adjusted, all of these failure to file and interest penalties will be adjusted accordingly as well, because a lot of those are driven by the total amount of tax owed. So obviously if the taxes you owe goes down, then the amount of penalties and interest that you might owe on top of that is going to be reduced as well. Okay, so that covers it for this video. I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions about CP14 notices or interest penalties, how to get those things abated, things like that, please feel free to leave me a comment below. And I look forward to seeing you again on the next video. Thank you.